Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show, Logically Left. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, and I've got a lot of stories for you today. So, of course, we've got the usual mix of fun and disaster, including Donald Trump's birthday parade. How did that go? Mm, fun times. I want to talk about that. We have, of course, the disastrous news coming out of Minnesota. Uh, and this is of course, related to the shooting of two Democrats, along with their spouses. Um, the right wing is trying to blame the left because, of course, they are. Okay, and how's that going? Apparently not well. We also have VA rules that could allow doctors to refuse to treat Democrats. I kid you not. People on political affiliation. So potentially, yes, if you're a veteran, if you go to the VA hospital, whatever, and you happen to have not supported Donald Trump, well, these hospitals could say, well, no, we refuse to treat you. I mean, it's just really dystopian stuff coming out. And of course, it's related to one of Trump's executive orders. We have ICE running out of money. Oh no.
Oh no!
Or oh yes. And then we have a bombshell report about the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, who is, friends, of course, with Donald Trump. Apparently, he had made some deals with gangs, criminal gangs. The people that he was supposed to be, that he propped up his entire image on cracking down against. Yeah, turns out he was making deals. Uh-oh. Not good. All right. So anyway, that is today's breakdown of what we're going to talk about on the show. Please like and share the stream. Before I dive into the stories, I do want to take a minute to thank some people. For one, over on our YouTube page, YouTube membership, Kalita Odium, thank you for signing up and becoming a supporter over on our YouTube page. If you want to join and help out the show, you can hit the membership, the join button below on YouTube if you're watching to become a member. Then over on our Patreon page, I want to thank Sue Ann Zimmerman for becoming a level 1 member and supporting, of course, the show over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. All right, with that said, let's do it. Let's dive into the stories today, starting with the fail parade. Oh my goodness, you gotta love that. And boom. Oh, the winning. So much winning going on here today. All right. Let me refresh that here. Over the weekend, President Donald Trump finally got his long-awaited birthday military parade. Wow, straight out of North Korea and into your living room. Now, that said, turns out that was a complete flop. That's right. Turns out not a lot of people showed up. Okay, especially when it comes to how many people they wanted to show up. So you had about 36 horses, 28 Abrams tanks, 6,700 soldiers, and millions of taxpayer dollars. And you had the turnout that was far less than expected. Or again, far less than what they wanted. We expected little turnout. There was a crowd that was well under the administration's projected 200,000 people that showed up to the National Mall on Saturday, where, again, you had Army information sessions, military fitness challenges, weapons exhibits, and all sorts of things prior to the parade. while military members actually spoke on stage the entire time to a relatively sparse audience. Then, of course, you had the parade, which turned out to be a bit of a snooze fest. That, yeah, no, that was just the audio there tells you everything. No cheers, nothing enthusiastic going on in the background, just the awkward squeaking of the tank as it rolls by. I mean, right there, if there's any video that really illustrates how the American people feel about this, it is that video. The enthusiasm gone, sapped. No, and very low energy. Okay, just wow. As far as parades go, boring. Apparently, you had a few, sparse chants of USA,
USA, USA, USA.
That's about the most energetic it got. And the majority of the parade also featured soldiers just walking by. They weren't even marching in step. They're just walking by. They're phoning it in. Okay. Pretty sure they didn't want to be there either. Okay. There was one man wearing an InfoWars shirt that was yelling, "Bring out the tanks," and then complained that people got no energy out here. No kidding. No kidding. About the time that people started perking up is when Trump and J.D. Vance spoke, because, again, Trump is the cult leader, and that's really it. That crowd, of course, was filled with QAnoners, J6ers, the MAGA people, and they did show up. That's about it. I mean, you had people like Judy Alston of Delaware, who, of course, said, the normal QAnon thing. Normal, right? There's nothing normal about what they're saying, but again, this is what they say, the claiming that all of our politicians are sex trafficking children, and Hillary Clinton's drinking the blood of children to stay young, and Trump is the only one that's brave enough to go and expose them, except that he hasn't yet. Yeah, there's that. Again, the man with 34 felony counts and is a rapist that hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. They still somehow believe that he is the only one who's trying to expose the pedophile ring in Congress and in Washington, D.C. Insanity. QAnon people are not only super weird, but again, I think there's a lot of projection going on here, because there are a lot of, and I've talked about them, documented cases of QAnon J6 people that have criminal records involving the sexual abuse of minors. So yeah, awkward, very awkward. Now, again, how many people showed up? Well, if you ask Stephen Chung of the Trump administration, over 250,000 patriots, brave America patriots showed up. Of course, it was nowhere near that. Maybe 100,000 at most. Maybe. Again, the numbers here are debatable. And so, not only that, but some of the attendees were protesting against it. In fact, 5013 founder, wow, Doug Landry shared a series of posts that documented many of the issues with this parade. Landry described the event as legitimately the worst executed mass attendance event I've ever seen, before sharing photos that sparsely populated Washington Mall, the single checkpoint to which approximately 15,000 people were sent, maps that failed to offer any clear directions, dozens of empty checkpoints, and empty VIP bleachers. Oops. Compare that, of course, to the No Kings protests that had an estimated near 6 million, if not more, attendees across 2,100 cities, and it could be up to 10 million. We don't know. And towns across the country. Of course, you had an additional 300 kick out the clowns rallies, which is also funny. Then let's see. You also had Philadelphia, for example, who saw more than 100,000 attendees. Chicago, 75,000. You had smaller towns such as Pentland, Michigan, reporting about 400 protesters in the town of 800. It turns out that holding your own protests away from Donald Trump's parade actually was a really smart move. In fact, I want to show you here a picture from Chicago. That's one of the Chicago march. What was it? The No Kings rally marches. So there's that. That's awesome. A lot of people there. And then, of course, this one is from Atlanta. A lot of people. A lot of people. I don't know, man. It looks like the Trump parade was a bit of an expensive flop while you had millions of people turn out to the No Kings protests. And my numbers might be a little off because there's a lot of different reporting here on how many people actually showed up to the No Kings protests. Some are saying above 10 million, up to 13. I'm not entirely sure. So again, don't take my numbers as gospel here. All right. But once again, I think it's really important to point out how this is the number of protests that have popped up against Donald Trump are huge, huge. And it's increased dramatically since 2017. Since his inauguration in January, Trump's administration has witnessed more than 15,000 protests and rallies. No wonder Trump hates protests. No wonder he threatened to, shut them down. No wonder he hates free speech, because a lot of that speech is against him. You had a threefold increase in the number of public demonstrations that have taken place since by this point back in 2017. It is estimated that these No Kings rallies actually drew out more people than the 2017 Women's March. Wow. So, I mean, that is pretty amazing. And look, remember that you need about 3.5% of the population to force action via mass protest, right? That's the number that you're really looking at, right? We don't know if the No Kings protest turned out to be that many. Still, scholars, even if it doesn't turn out to be that 3.5% of the population, still, if you mobilize 1 to 1.5% of the population, you still have about a 40 to 60% chance of accomplishing your goals, political goals. So that's where it's really, really important. But the overall point is here behind these protests is that the energy is absolutely there, 100%. And all we need to do now is continue that energy and to focus it and turn it into real, lasting political action. Moving on. Over the weekend, tragedy struck in the state of Minnesota after a deranged white man assassinated 2 Democratic legislators and their spouses, which of course immediately led to right-wingers claiming that, well, look at that leftist violence. Every single time. Never fails. It never fails. Now, the reality, of course, is that this was not a member of the left. The suspected shooter, 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter, was I believe it was a private security guy who is a Trump supporter tied to right-wing ideology. This is according to family and friends. One of them being roommate David Carlson, saying that, oh yeah, no, this guy, Trump supporter, massively. Yes, the guy loved Trump, staunch Trump voter in 2024. Not only that, but public records show that he was a registered Republican when he lived in Oklahoma. He then, of course, moved to Minnesota, where they don't actually keep track of your political affiliation. So odds are not a lefty supporter, not a Bernie Sanders supporter, not an AOC supporter, not an Ilhan Omar supporter for sure. Okay, no, Trump supporter. Okay, now not only that, but he had a 2023 sermon that confirmed his opposition to reproductive rights and LGBTQ rights. Definitely not on the left. Police also found a manifesto listing Democrats and abortion advocates as his next targets. Look, there is no doubt that this man is a far-right lunatic. Simple as that. Now, that said, 2-day manhunt, okay, after what he did on Saturday, and oh, would you look at that? Police actually managed to take this man into custody. Whoa! Authorities located the vehicle that he'd been using abandoned on Sunday, and a police officer reported that he believed that he saw bolting into the woods. All right. About 20 different tactical teams conducted a thorough search, and after a few hours, Bolter ended up crawling out to officers in the woods and was handcuffed and taken into custody in a field. And there you go. He was wearing a police-like uniform that apparently so closely resembled an actual law enforcement uniform that most people were not able to tell that he wasn't a real cop. So I don't know. He was wearing that uniform, impersonating a police officer. Definitely does not sound like a left winger. Okay, just saying. Obviously, though, having that uniform and that list of targets and all that stuff shows intent to carry out these attacks against. And not just these are political assassinations of Democrats and abortion providers. Okay, this is domestic terrorism. Period. And of course, there was Governor Tim Walz was also a potential target, along with again Ilhan Omar and others. So that said, you got the right wing, which is saying, "Oh, what a violent Marxist! What are you talking about? Violent Marxist leftist? What? No, y'all are crazy." Okay. And of course they're like, oh yeah? Well, if he wasn't a violent Marxist leftist, then why did Tim Walz appoint him to the government? Oh, gotcha. Wait a minute. Where's this coming from? Obviously, people like Benny Johnson, the guy who was paid by Russia. All right. Yes, he received money from Russia to do propaganda videos. Just saying. And was the same guy kicked out of BuzzFeed for plagiarism. Not an original thought in that man's head. Apparently all put there by someone else, including the Kremlin. So, yeah, no, this guy out there saying, oh, yeah, leftist, Marxist. And then, of course, Elon Musk, because of obviously Elon Musk is going to say these things. And Senator Mike Lee, who said, this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. Wait, so they attack their own side? Does that make any sense whatsoever? No, of course not. So now, is it true, though, that Walz had appointed Bolter to the government? Not quite. Here's the reality. Bolter was reappointed, in 2019 to a workforce development advisory board, and one that one of his victims, by the way, Hoffman, served on at the time. Now, the governor, of course, did not know Bolter. A source in his office said and emphasized that these are not appointments to a position in the governor's office or cabinet. Bolter was first appointed to the board back in 2016 by then Governor Mark Dayton. So, just saying. Now, Lee, of course, got a bunch of pushback on his post. Nina Turner wrote, using the strategy to push your own political agenda is disgraceful. People are dead. Not that they care. Even for Mike Lee, said Norman Ornstein, this is beyond disgusting. Disinformation beneath contempt. Brad Palumbo, is a journalist, a conservative journalist, by the way, saying, what the hell is Mike Lee doing? Has he completely lost it? Probably. Now, another said this. This is the Democratic Party on X, which, by the way, not a bad post, saying it's Father's Day and you're spending your time tweeting out lies about a tragedy to run cover for a right-wing domestic terrorist. Pathetic. Wow, that's a pretty good one from the Democrats. But unfortunately, that's what they're going with now. That is the talking points that have been dispersed from the highest echelons of the right wing for all of their little crappy influencers, or sometimes big crappy influencers, to go and spread around. Oh, a leftist. All the violence, all the political violence is from the left. Really? Reality says otherwise. I know reality and facts are a stubborn thing, which is why they keep trying to get rid of them. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, right-wing extremists actually drove about 90% of the terrorist plots and attacks from January to May of 2020, a trend that has been consistent since 1994. Wow. The GAO and DHS reported that 35% of the 231 domestic terrorism incidents from 2010 to 2021 were racially or ethnically motivated, largely tied to far-right ideologies like white supremacy and anti-government militias. The Anti-Defamation League, which of course is a right-leaning organization that has a right-leaning bias, even they are like, oh, turns out, yeah, most of the violence is all right-wing. They found that right-wing extremists committed 75% of 450 extremist murders from 2008 to 2017, causing the deaths of 338 people, compared to just 4% by left-wing groups. The Global Terrorism Database attributes 35% of the 263 incidents from 2010 to 2017 to right-wing terrorism, outpacing Islamist 14% and left-wing 13% attacks. Those numbers are likely on the low side. Many studies separate ethno-nationalist and religious terrorism, often aligned with right-wing ideologies, into distinct categories. Ethno-nationalist attacks, which are rooted in white supremacist and anti-immigrant beliefs, and religious extremism, like Christian nationalist violence, share conservative ideological underpinnings, but are often excluded from right-wing tallies, skewing the data to downplay the broader far-right footprint. Because, of course, at the end of the day, this guy, whose friends and family said is not only a hardcore Trump supporter, but was also deeply religious and conservative. I mean, he was on video dancing for Jesus, okay, was right-wing, massively right-wing. That's who he is. And look, according to Paul Schrader, who has known Bolter for years, quote, he was right-leaning politically, but never fanatical. From what I saw, just strong beliefs. Okay, yes. Oh, yeah, no, he's not a fanatic. He's just got some really strong beliefs that are violent. Yeah, okay. Look, obviously all these right-wing influencers are full of crap. Now, does this mean, of course, that every conservative is a violent fanatic? No, nobody's claiming that. There are quite a few that are, okay? And right now, the violence from the right wing is overwhelming. Yet, they're flacks in Congress like Mike Lee, okay? And right-wing media, and by the way, like the CNN and a lot of these, centrist establishment don't want to admit that the danger is in the right wing. They just don't want to. Maybe they're scared. I don't know. Maybe they want access and they don't want to offend the good Republicans. Well, not a lot of them that are good. Not at this point. So, yes, they keep lying about the people that are doing the violence, and it is absolutely incredibly gross. Mike Lee and the rest of these people, Benny Johnson, he's a clown. They're disgusting ghouls, though. They have no place in political office, okay? Or in, like, being purveyors of information, because they're not giving out information. And they're not only that, but they're excusing political violence from their own side, but not just that. But they're encouraging violence by painting the left as, these violent extremists, they must be dealt with in whatever way possible. Likely, of course, with violence. All they're doing is creating a never-ending, vicious cycle, perpetuating it with, of course, horrible real-world results, as we've seen. All right, moving on. Oh boy. New rules passed at the Department of Veterans Affairs could allow doctors to refuse to treat unmarried veterans, specifically female veterans, and Democrats. Because, of course, this is under new hospital guidelines imposed following an executive order from President Donald Trump. The new rules obtained by The Guardian also apply to psychologists, dentists, and a host of other occupations, including chiropractors, certified nurses, practitioners, optometrists, podiatrists, licensed clinical social workers, and even speech therapists. Medical staff are, of course, still required to treat veterans regardless of race, color, religion, and sex, so far. And all veterans remain entitled to treatment, yet individual workers are now free to decline to care for patients based on the personal characteristics that are not explicitly prohibited by federal law. Language requiring healthcare professionals to care for veterans regardless of their politics and marital status have been explicitly removed. So, gone. It's just gone. And if you don't think that it, was done on purpose, you would be wrong. I believe it is very much done on purpose. Doctors and other medical staff can also be barred from working at VA hospitals based upon that same marital status, political party affiliation, or union activity. Documents reviewed by The Guardian show. So, yes, they can discriminate you from even working there if you are a Democrat, unmarried woman, or supported unions, or was even part of a union. That is insane. Absolutely insane. Now, what I keep referencing a executive order. Which one? Because he's put out a ton of executive orders. More so, I remember when Obama would do an executive order, but King Obama, how dare you? He's trying to take over authoritarianism. And then when Trump does numerous more executive orders than both Trump and Biden, both Obama and Biden, sorry. When Trump does more of those, crickets. Absolute crickets. I mean, insane. But anyway, VA officials cited the president's January 30th executive order titled Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. Wow. Okay. Now, the primary purpose of this executive order was, of course, to try to strip most government protections from trans people because they hate trans people. They discriminate against trans people. And look, the VA, since then, that order has stopped providing most gender-affirming care And they actually also banned the words gender affirming and transgender from clinical settings. Yeah, these are the people that were, why are you getting so mad about words, man? Are now banning words. Of course. They're not allowed to use those words, but you know what? Using the R slur is fine for them. You see them using that all the time. Go over on, to X, or what was formerly Twitter, and you see the R slur everywhere. All right-wingers using it, of course. And then, of course, the T slur, they love using that too. It's just my free speech. But we're going to ban you from using the word transgender or even gender-affirming care. It's just disgusting, what they're doing. Now, medical experts said that the implications of these rule changes could be far-reaching. Quote, they seem to open the door to discrimination on the basis of anything that is not legally protected. And you can almost guarantee that they're going to continue to try to reduce what is legally protected. This is according to Kenneth Kaiser, the VA's top healthcare official during the Clinton administration. He said the changes open up the possibility that doctors could refuse to treat veterans based on their reason for seeking care, including allegations of rape and sexual assault, which is a problem in the military, current or past political party affiliation or political activity, and personal behavior, such as even alcohol or marijuana use. Oh, let me tell you, I know people who have been in the military. There is a lot of drinking that goes on. Okay, a lot of drinking that went on. And you want to stop them from having medical care if they've if they used to drink or if they drink? There's going to be a lot of people shut out. I'm just saying. Look, all of this though, I think it's Project 2025. Okay, that's it. To erase LGBTQ plus people. Okay, eliminating trans people, shutting out political rivals, shutting them off from services. That's it. They want to create a military that is bereft of anyone that has any sort of left-wing leanings. Why? Because they want the military as their enforcers to enforce right-wing Christo-fascist rule. So you get all those people out. You get anyone who's left-wing by saying, well, we're not going to cover you for your, if you need health care, we're going to get you out. We're going to ban trans people from the military. We're going to do all of these things to get you out so that whoever's left agrees with us already. So it's that's what they're doing. All right. Now, in an email response to questions, VA's press secretary, Peter Kasperowicz, did not dispute the new rules allow doctors to refuse to treat veteran patients based on their beliefs, or that physicians could be dismissed based on their marital status or political affiliation. But said all eligible, that's very important, because they're deciding who is eligible here, will always be welcome at the VA and will always receive the benefits and service they've earned under the law. He said the rules changes were nothing more than a formality, but confirmed that they were made to comply with Trump's executive order. Kasperowicz also said that the revisions were necessary to, quote, ensure the VA policy comports with federal law. He did not say which federal law or laws necessitated these changes. And until the recent changes, VA hospitals' bylaws said that medical staff could not discriminate against patients on the basis of race, age, color, sex, religion, national origin, politics, marital status, or disability under any employment matter. Now, several of those items, including national origin, politics, and marital status, have been removed. Gone. Similarly, bylaws and decisions regarding medical staff membership no longer forbid VA hospitals from discriminating against candidates for staff positions based on national origin, sexual orientation, marital status, membership in a labor organization, or lawful political party affiliation. Dr. Arthur Kaplan, founding head of the Division of Medical Ethics at New York University's Grossman School of Medicine, called the rules extremely disturbing and unethical. It seems on its face an effort to exert political control over the VA medical staff. What we typically tell people in healthcare, you keep your politics at home and take care of your patients. Well, that was before. This is now. This is under a Christo-fascist dictatorship that they're setting up where, oh, now suddenly we are absolutely going to discriminate against you if you're a Democrat or if you're not a staunch Trump-supporting Republican, or maybe was even a member of a union, much less, of course, being a woman, being a member of an LGBTQ group, being a part of that. We're going to discriminate against everybody that is not white, straight, cis. That's it. That's who they are. Okay. Kaplan said the rules opened the door to doctors questioning patients about whether they attended a Trump rally or declining to provide health care to a veteran because they wore a button critical of J.D. Vance or voiced support for gay rights. Those views aren't relevant to caring for patients, said Kaplan. So why would we put anyone at risk of losing care that way? Because this is all about creating essentially one-party rule, okay? Not only is it about owning the libs, punishing the left, it goes further, right? But their entire worldview, of course, is owning the libs and getting rid of LGBTQ plus people and anybody who does not support Donald Trump. And this follows that. Now, in interviews, veterans said the impact of the new policy would probably fall hardest on female veterans, LGBTQ plus veterans, and those who live in rural areas where there are fewer doctors. I'm lucky, said Tia Christopher. I have my choice of 3 clinics. She's a Navy veteran who reported being raped in service back in 2000. She added that under the new policy, some female veteran sexual assault survivors may have to register at a hospital in another region and travel more than 100 miles just to see a doctor. It could have a huge ripple effect, which again is the point. Now, as concerned, of course, as they were about the new policies themselves, medical experts were also equally worried about the way that these came about. In fact, sources at multiple VA hospitals, speaking on a condition of anonymity because of fear of retaliation, told The Guardian that the rule changes were imposed without consultation with the system's doctors, a characterization that the VA's Kasparowicz did not dispute. And there it is. Here we are. We got a government that has been erasing trans people, black people, hell, minorities overall. And it now is making sure that if you are not a member of the correct political party, their party, you might not even get treatment at the VA. I think this goes way, way beyond cancel culture, which I remember a time where they said, well, we don't like cancel culture. Now they're doing it. And are just punishing what they see is the wrong kinds of people. It's absolutely disgusting. The U.S. military is a really bad sexual assault and white nationalist problem. It's been known for decades. This is true. It's very true. All right. Well, let's move on to some potentially good news. Oh, yeah. Nearly 6 months into the new Trump administration, which promised mass deportation now. I've seen the signs. The federal agency tasked with doing that appears to be running out of money. Sad baby. While there are more than 3 months left in this fiscal year, there's an estimate that found that the agency is actually $1 billion over budget. Oops. Whoopsie.
Whoopsie.
I can't help it. It's hilarious. Now, lawmakers have raised concerns about how fast ICE is burning through their budget, even as the deportation numbers are pretty lackluster. It is not where Stephen Miller, the well-known Nosferatu enthusiast impersonator, and Donald Trump were hoping that they'd be at. Of course, Miller had melted down about this to staffers, saying, "Oh, we got to pump up the numbers. We need more numbers. There's so many more numbers." Well, they're not doing it. Now, the money crunch comes as the Trump White House is demanding that ICE agents detain 3,000 immigrants a day. levels that the agency has yet to reach because there's just not that many people. They want to claim that it's criminal alien. There's not that many criminal aliens in the United States. There are seamstresses, there are construction workers, there's farm workers, people that are here legally that have that have their visas, that have their paperwork, they're going to their immigration hearings. You got those people, and guess what? The administration is grabbing all those people and deporting them anyway. Yeah. So that's what's going on here. Now, this, of course, is leading to the possibility of Donald Trump seeking out additional money from other agencies. Just taking it from other agencies to try to support his mass deportation force. Lawmakers have stated that the department responsible for ICE, DHS, overseen by Secretary Kristi Noem, could actually be in violation of the law if it continues to spend at its current levels without more funding. Now, that said, Trump's big nasty bill contains about $75 billion meant for ICE just for the next 5 years. Now, of course, I'm sure that will only end up being a fraction of what they would need to try to deport 11 million people. Okay, the undocumented immigrants currently in this country, which, again, all that money, it's a bit ironic because this administration's like, we want to save taxpayer money by blowing a whole bunch of taxpayer money on useless deportations. Okay. Yes. Now, the reality is, of course, they do not want to save taxpayer money. What they want is a police state that has no money, no funding for food stamps or Medicaid at all. That's the reality. And that's, by the way, what part of this big nasty bill does. It cuts $1 trillion from Medicaid and food stamps. It's horrific. Now, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who's the top Democrat on the DHS Appropriations Subcommittee, said Trump's DHS is spending like drunken sailors. I don't know why I said it that way, but anyway. Now, here is the thing, though. If the big nasty bill ends up passing, which it has to go through the Senate and then come back to the House if there are any changes that are made. Okay, if it does not pass, what can Donald Trump do? Well, he could declare another BS emergency. Yep, because, it's not like we don't have situations where Trump has already declared BS emergencies. And they are BS because they're not actual emergencies. And by the way, while he's making up fake emergencies, he's actually ignoring real emergencies. Like, some of the stuff where these states like Arkansas, Missouri have been hit by massive storms. Now we're in the middle of hurricane season. So that's going to be another actual real emergency disaster. But he is completely ignoring those. Okay, no, you states, you can handle that. No, I'm actually just going to do the real emergencies. And by real, I mean the ones that I just made up in order to get money to basically be horrific to immigrants. That's really it. Okay, sure. Now, still in 2020, he already did this. Used that measure to pass a $4 billion, to use $4 billion of the Pentagon's money to fund his ridiculous border wall. So, very likely that he could do this. Now, according to a former budget official speaking to Axios, they said, I have a feeling that they're going to grant themselves an apportionment, use the life and safety exception, and just keep burning money. Yeah. University of Houston Law Center professor and former Defense Department attorney Chris Marsola told the outlet that, quote, you could imagine a new emergency declaration that pertains to interior enforcement that would trigger the same kind of emergency personnel mobilization statutes. These statutory authorities authorizing the president to declare emergencies unlock a whole host of other authorities for these departments and agencies that are often written incredibly broadly and invest a lot of discretion in the president. So that's how he's going to do this. How soon could we see this happen? Well, we don't know. Lawmakers have pointed out that DHS could run out of money as soon as next month, July. Uh-oh. Now, what's funny is if they keep spending like this, well, that would violate the Anti-Deficiency Act, which bans agencies from obligating or spending federal funding that has not been congressionally appropriated. Now, nobody's gotten in trouble for this. Nobody's gotten even charged with violating this. And so, yes, potentially you could face criminal charges or fines. Kristi Noem could, but it's very unlikely. I would not count on that. Is anybody actually ever going to enforce the law against Donald Trump? Probably not. That's a disaster. But still, hey, look at that. Haha, ICE is running out of money. Again, I'm sure he's going to figure it out. They'll figure out some way to fund it. Maybe they will end up passing Trump's nasty bill. Maybe with the help of people like John Fetterman. I mean, absolutely disgusting, right? But yeah, I could see certain Democrats like that lining up to support this piece of crap. Still, at the end of the day, no one has ever been more correct than the people who wanted to abolish ICE. And no one has been more incorrect than the politicians on both sides, from both parties, who kept agreeing to pump more and more money into it. Hey, Democrats, you might want to stop doing that. You might want to stop supporting ICE, which is, again, a criminal organization that should not exist. Melt ICE already. Get rid of it. And I swear, if Democrats actually do end up winning in 2028 and they do not get rid of ICE, I mean, that would just be an absolute monumental failure on their part. Especially after all of this. All right. Last story of the day. By the way, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Follow the money. Yes, indeed. People that complain about trans, check their browser history. Oh, the chasers. Oh, so many of them are chasers. Alex Jones, pulled up that kind of, yes, it was trans porn. Okay. On his laptop or was it his cell phone? I don't remember which, but he ain't the only one. DHS and ICE are Bush Jr. administration garbage. Yes, that Democrats still did not get rid of and should have. Get rid of the whole Department of Homeland Security and the Patriot Act. It was post 9/11 overreach. This person is speaking my language here. Yes. Enthusiastically, yes. Get rid of all of that 9/11 war on terror garbage that we have been wasting so much of our money on, and actually maybe, I don't know, use that money to ensure that every man, woman, and child in this country has health care. That makes sense. That makes sense. That's logical. And it's the lefty position. All right. Anywho. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, who allied himself with President Donald Trump and made a deal with him to allow the U.S. to send Venezuelan migrants, many of them, the vast majority of them, who do not have criminal records or anything like that, but have been believed because of tattoos or something like that, to be members of Trenda Agra, the infamous C-Cut prison. That's where they have been sent. Bukele, through all of that, before all of that, had constructed himself an image of being tough on crime and criminal gangs. However, according to an investigation by ProPublica, he's not quite as tough on crime as we thought. Oh, shocker. According to this report, Bukele, previously in the early years of his presidency, had cut deals with leaders of gangs like MS-13. Oh, would you look at that? According to the outlet, Bukele's allies had blocked extraditions of gang leaders to the United States to get punished. Okay. These gang leaders were viewed by U.S. authorities as potential witnesses to the negotiations and persecuted Salvadoran law enforcement officials who had helped these task forces that took on these criminal gangs. The report from the U.S. government was led by Joint Task Force Vulcan, a multi-agency law enforcement team created, ironically, by Trump's request back in 2019. Further, the investigation suggests the Bukele government may have diverted U.S. aid funds to the gang, yes, as part of the alleged deal to provide it with money and power in exchange for their votes and reduced homicide rates. Oh, hey, yes, we will give you money if you not only vote for us, but also stop killing as many people. You still kill people, but not that many. Bring it down a little bit. Okay, we'll work with you here. Okay? Oh, interesting. Now, it's amazing. Now, agents in 2021 drew up a request to review U.S. bank accounts held by Salvadoran political figures to look for any evidence of money laundering related to the suspected diversion of U.S. funds. The list of names revealed Bukele, as well as other senior officials and their relatives that were involved in this scheme. Yes, taking U.S. aid money and giving it to the criminal gangs. The list of names revealed. I mentioned that already. Sorry. Information obtained through investigation has revealed that the individuals contained within this submission are heavily engaged with MS-13 and are laundering funds from illicit businesses where MS-13 is involved. The agents wrote, the people on the list are also believed to have been funding MS-13 to support political campaigns, and MS-13 has received political funds. Whoops. Uh-oh.
Whoopsie.
Because of course. Now look, here's the thing. This is not unique to Bukele. This is nothing new. Turns out you had previous Salvadoran administrations that ended up having to make agreements with these gang members to, for one, improve prison conditions. I'm in favor of improving prison conditions, of course. Now, they also, though, shortened sentences of convicted gang leaders in exchange for agreements for them to tamp down on crime. And look, even before Bukele became president in 2019, an Alfaro investigation revealed that Bukele himself had made deals with gangs while serving as the mayor of San Salvador. So, yeah, the guy's, been making deals with the violent criminal gangs. And some of those deals were especially sweet. The gangs allegedly agreed to reduce their homicide rates and use their influence to deliver votes for Bukele's party in the country's 2021 legislative elections in exchange for political power and financial incentives, including funds diverted from those U.S. aid grants. And U.S. investigators went as far as to seek access to Bukele's banking information due to suspicions of financial collusion with gang leaders, though ProPublica could not determine whether the request was granted. Now, that said, Bukele gets into power, he cracks down on the gangs, and consolidates power using the threat of course, criminal gangs, and he even actually ended up winning an unconstitutional second term. So the Constitution apparently bars you from running for a second term, but doesn't matter to Bukele. He did it anyway. So, look, basically, Bukele, everything he did was in the pursuit of gaining and maintaining power, making deals with criminal gangs, blocking extraditions to the U.S., And then, of course, later on, doing a crackdown using these gangs to, of course, give himself more power. It really is a great example of corruption, authoritarianism, and doing whatever he can to consolidate and gain power. Which is why it does not surprise me that Donald Trump, President Trump, is absolutely in awe and wants to model his own administration after Bukele. Shocker. Shocker. All right, so ProPublica continuing to do some fantastic, investigative journalism, which, it's something that New York Times and Washington Post really used to do, but not so much anymore. Maybe they're afraid of losing access to our criminal president. I don't know. Or maybe they're just too busy going after transgender people. I have no idea. But it is pretty pathetic that our so-called, supposed mainstream media, democracy dies in darkness. Those people completely dropped the ball on all of this. Sad. Okay. All right, well, that's it. That's all I got for y'all today. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the stream. And if you enjoyed the show at all and want to support us by hitting the join button below. If you're on YouTube, you can go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/jeffwaldorf, and sign up for that. Again, to support us, share us out on social media, all that wonderful stuff. jeffwaldorf.bsky.social. There's my BlueSky, all that wonderful stuff. So thank you again. Really appreciate it. Have a lovely and wonderful day, and we will see you back here tomorrow, same time, same place, logically left. Love you all, and remember, change begins with you.